And if you could go back and find the beginnings of the threads of the stories told to you about you, the very things that you say to yourself on a daily basis that are wreaking havoc in your ability to believe that you are good and valuable, the things that are ruining your confidence, I could almost guarantee you that those stories were a greater representation of the storyteller than they were the main character of the story, and you have potentially been living a life based off a story that was never about you to begin with. Welcome to the Rocky Garza Show, where we explore the collision of a deeply meaningful life and a wildly impactful career. I'm your host, Rocky Garza, and with over a decade of experience as a coach, consultant, and keynote speaker to many Fortune 500 companies, I'm here to share personal stories and expert advice to help you gain clarity, build confidence, and discover that you too can build the life you actually want. Whether you're a high achiever looking for a more full life or a leader striving for professional success with purpose, this podcast was designed with you in mind. The Imposter Within, Part 2. My name is Rocky Garza, and welcome back to the Rocky Garza Show. Before we jump in today, and we're going to talk about looking at the imposter within. If you missed last week's episode, make sure and check that out as we begin to sort of give the introduction and the framework for how the imposter within works. We're going to break down today is what we refer to as the confidence method, the mechanism and ability we have to sort of unpack stories told to us, stories we tell ourselves, what those means, and all of that. And so, but what I want to do first, I always want to remind you, as always, if you have not yet gone to rockygarza.com/beyond success to see what we're doing, what we're up to, our very next event, free virtual event that you can join us with. We would love to have you do that. So again, make sure and check out rockygarza.com/beyond success. Let's go ahead and jump in for today. Today, what we're doing is we are looking at the confidence method. This is part 2 of the imposter within framework, the imposter within, and what we're doing is looking at the confidence method. Now, the confidence method was created about 6 years ago. We've actually got a book out called Be Confident. You can get that at beconfidentbook.com. You can get that at rockygarza.com. But what we do is we walk through what we call the confidence method. And this is really a systematic way, a methodology to begin to look at and unpack the stories told to us, the stories we tell ourselves. And if you catch last week's episode at the end, we just really wrapped up there and we talked about how looking at that maybe doubt wasn't necessarily always the enemy, right? We said that doubt sort of gave way to belief, doubt gave way to conviction, doubt gave way to faith, however you define that. And in each of those settings, that the only thing that really got rid of doubt altogether was certainty, and that in the face of certainty, nothing is needed but certainty. However, the majority of life is not certain. It's not 100%. It's not dialed in. It's not, I know for a fact. It will never be. It will always. So, therefore, if we are, for the most part in our life, faced with doubt of some kind, because doubt is the gateway to belief and deep conviction, then why do we seem to struggle so much with the lack of confidence? Why do we seem to so often talk about, I wish I had more confidence? Why do we seem to so often describe this innate feeling, I wish I had this thing that I don't have, and therefore it leads this conversation around imposter syndrome? See, imposter syndrome, I believe, is just us fueling ourselves with the wrong message. Now, it would be easy and wildly oversimplified if I said, well, if you want to change the way you talk to yourself, change the way you talk to yourself. Yet it's been something that has been so ingrained in us for so long without a mechanism and a method to remind us to come back to ourself. We often find that the old messages continue to win over and over and over. I want you to think about in your leadership journey, in your business journey, in your entrepreneurship journey, wherever you are, in your relational journey. In each of those places, we still continually have these old ways of thinking, and we end up with those old ways of thinking because we don't do the work to go in to change the messaging, to change the storyteller. So today what I want to do is I want to walk you through the confidence method. I want to show you how do you use a systematic approach to something that feels very innately emotional and very feelings driven. How do we create a systematic approach to look at these things to see where they come from in order to find some clarity for ourselves? So again, as we talked about before, we have stories told to us about us. We have stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. These two stories collide. Wherever these two stories collide, that inevitably creates a truth, lowercase t truth, right? That creates something we do believe about ourselves. It doesn't mean that it is true. It just means we believe it to be true. So what I want you to do is I want you to start here. I want you to think through, what are some of the stories that have been told to you about you? What are some of the stories that have been told to you about you? These stories often follow things like, I am to this, T-O-O. I am so this, S-O. I am always this. You are never this. You just can't seem to. Why do you always? You're just so, you are too. Hey, don't be so. I want you to think through, what are some of the stories that have been told to you about you over the course of your life? Now, it would suit you well today as we go through each of these exercises to pause us. Pause me, get your pen and paper out, write some things down. Again, my hope is you're enjoying and listening to this, and if you're doing so, then you're putting in the work and you're doing it for yourself. So I want you to think through, what are some of the things that have been told to you about you? And as you think through some of the stories told to you about you, you're going to begin to have these things rise up inside of you. And I want to go ahead and sort of give you a warning now, if you will, is I want you to think about, there's going to be things that pop up that you go, wow, I haven't thought about that in a long time. That was me when I was 8. That seems like it was that there's no way that thing from sometime between the ages of 6 and 12 is popping up right now. And the reality is that for many of us, the answer is yes. See, there are times in your leadership journey as an individual and as a professional, pick any place in your life, there are moments in your leadership journey where you struggle with confidence because of a story that was told to you when you were 10. And I'm not trying to be melodramatic. I'm not trying to be a therapist. That is not who I am. That is not why I am here. I want you to understand, however, that it is proven with thousands of individuals that if you can go back to begin to uncover the beginnings, the threads, where were these stories formed in your life, I am telling you, there is an immense amount of clarity for you to find at age 47 that you will in fact change the trajectory of the rest of your life if you are willing to go backwards far enough and dig up the initial thread that has been woven your entire life together. We can in fact create a different life. I'm telling you, we can create a different life. But it's going to require for you to go backwards to begin to look and see and understand. Where are you? Where did it come from? What are these stories? And how do we begin to unpack them? So here's what I want you to do. Think about the stories told to you about you over the course of your life. I want you to think about, what are some of the things that have been told to you about you. Things in my life are things like, Rocky, you're too intense. Rocky, you're too emotional. Rocky, calm down. Rocky, why are you yelling all the time? Why is everything going to have to be that deep? Can't you just relax? How do you, all these things. Rocky, you're too emotional. You're not manly enough. All the things have been told to me over the course of my life. Now see, here's some things I want you to understand about stories told to you about you. Okay? Let me tell you this again. One thing that I want you to understand, one thing that no one is telling you about the stories told to you about you, is that they are almost always a greater representation of the storyteller than they are the main character of the story. I want you to consider that for a moment. What if there are parts of the stories told to you about you that you have been living into, believing that they were you? What if they were in fact not about you at all? See, I always think back when someone says something to someone like, hey, you got to be careful, you're too nice. You're too kind. Anybody ever told you that before? You're too nice. Isn't it crazy to think about that there's a negative connotation to the reality of being kind, the reality of being nice, the reality of seeing another human being, another individual? We've been told over the course of our life, you are too nice. No. Let me back it up for you. Let me give you the translation. The person in your life who told you that you were too nice, that's not what they meant. What they were trying to say is that in their lifetime, they have experienced that when they were kind again and again and again, there were people in their life who took advantage of their kindness, and they felt the consequence to their ability and desire to be a good human being. And when they saw the same characteristics in you, that you were kind and that you were good and you saw the good in others, the only thing they could think about was the pain that they endured themselves. And therefore they began to say to you, be careful. Here's their translation to you. They said, you're too nice, stop it. And what they meant to say was, I experienced pain when I took the same actions that you did. And I love you and care about you, and I don't want you to experience pain. Therefore, please don't do what I was doing. because I don't want you to feel how I was feeling. Now, wouldn't it be fantastic if that's actually what they said to us? Wouldn't it be amazing if that was actually the translation they gave us? However, they didn't have the right words yet. They have not gone through the confidence method. They didn't understand where it came from either. They only had what they had, and therefore, side note, I believe many of you out there could allow yourself to have a freer life if you would recognize that people only have the capacity to meet the expectations by which they have the capacity to meet, not by which you have the capacity to hold an expectation. Let me say that to you again. You would find an immense amount of freedom in your leadership journey. You would find an immense amount of freedom in your life holistically, in your relationships at home, in your ability to manage, direct, and lead your team or your business. If you would recognize the person on the other side of the table is only ever going to be able to meet your expectation to the degree by which they are capable, not to the degree by which you are able to hold the expectation. And I'm not telling you to lower your expectations. I'm telling you to maintain your desire and your bar for excellence, but I'm asking you to hold loosely the capacity for somebody else to meet it based on their individual ability to do it. I'm not asking you to lower your standards. I'm asking you to have a realistic expectation for what the other person's able to do. Stories told to you about you. The second element of this is stories you tell yourself about yourself. What are the things that you say to you about you? No one talks to you more than you do. No one says things to you more than you do. No one is talking to themselves about themselves more than you. No one tells you things about you more than you tell you things about you. And so I want you to think about what are the stories you tell yourself about yourself that match the ones that were told to you. I've been told my whole life I'm too intense. The ones I tell myself, sometimes they match just verbatim. I say, Rocky, you're too intense, calm down. I say, Rocky, look at their faces, they don't want that. I say, Rocky, look at people, the people aren't gonna follow you on Instagram because of this. You're so intense, you're talking about feelings, you're talking about when you were little, you're talking about your emotions. I'm trying to increase my revenue, Rocky. I'm trying to grow by 15% year over year. I'm looking to crest into the 7-8 figures. And you want me to look at when I was 9 and you think somehow looking back when I was 9 is going to affect my capacity to go to 9 figures? And my response to you is abso-freaking-lutely. I can guarantee you part of what is holding you back from building the life you actually want, regardless of the amount of royal oaks you have on your wrist, is directly correlated to your capacity to have clarity in who you are. I promise. And so I want you to consider what are some of the stories told to you about you. I want you to think about what are some of the stories you're telling yourself about yourself. What are the things that you say to yourself? What's the way in which you're talking to yourself? How do you daily wake up and what do you say you are able to do? What do you say you are capable of doing? What are you saying that you think is possible? If it's too hard, it's too much resistance, I can't do it, it's not going to work, let me tell you what's exactly going to happen. It's going to be hard, there's going to be too much resistance, and you're not going to do it. And I'm not trying to oversimplify it, I'm just trying to simplify it. So I want you to think about stories told to you about you. I want you to think about stories you tell yourself about yourself. And I want you to think about the collision of those two stories. Again, we use the word collision on purpose because where these two stories collide, there is inevitably an impact. Where these two stories collide, there's inevitably an impact. And so I want you to think about it. I want you to consider, what is that impact? What is the impact of the stories that you tell yourself about yourself? What is the impact of the collision of these two stories? And what's it doing to you? Is it telling you that you're too nice? Is it telling you that you're too intense? Is it telling you to calm down? Is it telling you that you don't have what it takes? Is it telling you that you're not good enough? Because if that's the message that it's telling you, then I'm here to make sure that you see, know, and understand. If that's what you're telling yourself about yourself, and the impact of the collision of those two stories is in fact doubt, fear, obstacle, insecurity, then we can begin to change the way in which we dialogue with ourselves, which changes the way that we think, which changes the actions that we take, which changes the results that you gain. So many of you are so focused on the goal and the result that you've lost sight of the fact that the results, that the goals, see, the goal is just the result of the work that you do today. It's not the product of waking up in a year. Today, I am 1 year to the day from the hardest thing that's ever happened to me. And where I am today is a result of what I've done daily over the course of the last 365 days. Not because I woke up a year later and said, wow, look what happened. Your ability to see yourself is the exact same. Your ability to have clarity about who you are is the exact same. What is the work that you're putting in on a daily basis? When we begin to find the fear, obstacle, and insecurity that exists in the collision of those two stories, we begin to understand what's the lie we tell ourselves. What's the fear? What's the obstacle? What's the insecurity? Rocky, you're too intense, is what I've been told. Rocky tells himself, calm down, it's not working, look at their faces. The collision of those two stories causes an impact. That impact is occasionally Rocky has a doubt, a fear, an obstacle, and insecurity that says it's not going to work, Rocky. Who do you think you are? You're not qualified. Calm down. They're not going to follow you. They're not going to like you. They're not going to share this. You've never even had a resume. You're going to go into a corporate space and tell me how to be an executive, how to be a leader, how to dramatically change our revenue. And so the fear, obstacle, insecurity pops up and I go, wait a second, hold. Pause. Is that true? I didn't say it was good. I didn't say it was right. I didn't say it was wrong. I said, is it true? And the reality is that is not true. I've been in the offices of many executives. I have coached many CEOs and leaders. I have helped consult and grow revenue for many businesses. I have sat and spoken to many Fortune 500 organizations. I have been interviewed on many podcasts. Therefore, if that is true, then how do I begin to rewrite the narrative that doesn't say I am ill-equipped, under-credentialed, don't have a resume? What am I doing? But I go back to say, what are the things that I have done that are in fact true about who I am, so that I can now convert that truth, we call this confirmation, and we convert that truth into goodness, which we call affirmation. Now, for some of you that are already rolling your eyes because you think, oh Lord, now I have to do affirmations and get in front of the mirror and yell great things to myself. I'm not knocking that. If that's what you want to do, go for it. I'm saying, how do we take the things we say to ourselves and go from lies to truths? That's going from a lie to a confirmation. I can confirm that it's true. How do we go from confirmation to affirmation? That's going from something to being true to something being true and good. You see, self-confidence I define simply, because I'm a simple guy. I define self-confidence as simply the belief that something is good. The belief that you are good. See, where you lack confidence is where you lack the belief that you are good. If we put it down in its simplest form, you lack the belief that you are good. At your core, that you are good. You think there is something wrong. You think there is something broken. You think there is something that must be fixed or healed or remedied or reconciled. And if it's not done quickly enough and fast enough, then you're always forever going to be wrong, broken, tainted somehow. Friend, let me implore with you that if you are willing to put in the effort and do the work to discover what makes you worthy and valuable and in fact good, it will radically transform your life, your business, and your future. See, the confidence method wasn't created just to make us feel good. It was created so that you could be reminded that you are good. And I can tell you from over the last decade plus of experience working with tens of thousands of people, you have the ability and capacity to change your life. But it means you're going to have to do something different. The confidence method wasn't created just so that we would go, oh, that's nice. The confidence method was created because it's a proven process to extract out of you the fear, doubt, obstacle, and insecurity, and to help you discover, own what makes you unique and good so that it can wildly transform your life. Thank you so much for joining us again for the Rocky Garza Show. As always, if you have not yet, check out rockygarza.com/beyondsuccess, where you can check out our next event. Stay plugged into us. Let us know what you're doing. Make sure to follow along wherever you're listening to this. We'd appreciate a rate and review. If you haven't done that yet, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, that just helps us continue to do what it is that you're doing. Looking forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.